Questions and answer after the hour session. So we have 30 minutes each for our discourse, inshallah. And afterwards, we'll throw the floor open. We'll entertain contribution, suggestions, and questions as we move on. So inshallah, Kirat, you will have the floor, inshallah, and you have 30 minutes from now. You have the floor, sir. Bismillah, sir.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I greet everyone watching or listening to me. The topic of discuss is a topic that has been somewhat treated over the years, fundamentally looking at a very historical development in the history of Nigeria, which today has been popularly known as June 12. While June 12 is a date to a non-Nigerian, and many non-Nigerians are familiar with the concept and idea of June 12. But to many who probably might not be aware, they might wonder if you mention June 12, they will say, what happened on June 12? What is important about June 12? But to an average Nigerian, it is a date that we cannot ever forget. And it is a date when Nigeria will forever hold us down. All these not only in Nigeria, in collusion with some foreign elements too, connived and made it impossible for us to realize the ambition, the aspiration that was behind the June 12 as an idea. However, I want us to understand one thing, that when talking about June 12, we are referring to a date that came to be very important from 1993. June 12, 1993 was the day that Nigerians trooped out to participate in a democratic process of electing a new president, and it became a watershed in our history as a result of the fact that so many things happened, from the political angle to the economic angle to the ethnic importance of that particular date that are combined to now make it important as a date. Prior to that, as at 1993, Nigeria was 33 years old as an independent nation. Interestingly, as a nation, we only had 23 years of military domination and just only 10 years of civilian rule. This extent, many Nigerians were already tired of military government. While in any case, it cannot be denied that military government in Nigeria brought some developments. However, the negatives of military regime far outweighed the positives that these military regimes ever recorded. They were associated with brutalization of the people. they were associated non-democratic process of taking decisions, which an average Nigerian was becoming quite tired of. By 1993, the agitations had already reached the peak. The military government of Babangida historically had denied Nigerians, had deceived Nigerians too much. On so many occasions, political processes were put in place where so parties were formed, politicians came out, supposedly that they had learned from the mistakes of the past and they were ready to make amends. Unfortunately, the military government of Babangida allowed all these deceitful processes to take place without allowing a democratic transformation to come into existence. With this, Nigerians were becoming tired. People like the late Yaradua and so many others like that led a lot of political processes. And by 1992, we had some elections in which Babangida put in place what was then known as diarchy, in the sense that there would be some elected civilian persons in office, while the military will at the same time be ruling. So Babangida had transformed himself into a military president, the first and probably one and only that we had. And with this, Nigerians were agitating. The agitation was getting to the peak. Most importantly, when the various military regimes came, and more importantly, Babangida's regime institutionalized corruption beyond what Nigerians ever dreamt of. And it had become so poor. The educational institutions were poorly funded. Our economy was already in the doldrums. By then, Naira was being devalued. As at that time, all our refineries were already running into crisis. That Nigeria was exporting, since then Nigeria had been exporting oil to foreign countries. We'll take it to Venezuela, of all countries then. Venezuela had running refineries. Nigerians would now, as at 1986, I came to be aware of this. Nigerians would now, they would refine in Venezuela and now import back refined products to Nigeria for us to consume. By then, our economy was already in crisis, and Nigerians were actually agitating for a change. And with this, Babangida knew that, okay, the pro-military, the pro-democracy agitation was ascending the crescendo. He hurriedly put in place the political process that eventually led us to June 12th. On the 12th of June, 1993, Nigerians trooped out en masse, and we recorded a most free and fair election in the history of the country. Across the federation, that even the opponents of Abiola in Kano, who originated from Kano, who hailed from Kano, was even defeated by Bashir MKO Abiola in Kano. Nigerians across various divides, whether religious, economic, whether political or ethnic, trooped out and voted en masse for these popular candidates. With this development, everybody was happy. Nigeria, for the first time, demonstrated that unified position of electing a popular candidate during an election. All we had had in the past was such that our action group would control the West, while the Northern People's Element or the Tafawa Balewa's political party then, will control the North. And in the East, the popular Great Zik of Africa's political party will dominate the political scenery. But with June 12th, the whole scenario changed, and all of Nigerians came out and voted for a particular party and setting a particular ticket, a mandate. And with this, it was a turning point in the history of Nigeria. Our expectation then was that the elected president and vice president will be sworn in and will have a democratic process completely in place. Unfortunately, the unfortunate regime of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida annulled this election. And while he claimed that he was stepped aside, was leaving government, and was returning back to his home base, he left us in a crisis in which he unilaterally now appointed Ernest Shonekan to be the head of interim government for Nigeria. That was an anomaly, was an aberration, because the person we elected was alive, was hale and hearty, was ready to take the mantle of leadership. Unfortunately, somebody just decided that what 14 million Nigerians decided, he threw into the dustbin and just imposed his own surrogate over us. For the 3 months that that particular regime was in place, it was a case of ara orokun, ara oro edie, that is, Nigeria was in a situation of serious crisis and turmoil, that pro-democracy activists trooped out and fought gallantly. Many were killed, many were maimed, many had to run into exile for their lives. And in this process, it became very apparent and unavoidable that the regime of Ibrahim Babangida had incurred the wrath of millions of Nigerians, which would follow the man into his grave. With this development came the coup led by Sani Abacha, who eventually overthrew the government of Ernest Shonekan. And when Sani Abacha came into office, characteristic of the military is suspended the constitution and started ruling by decrees as well, up until the time when it took us a long time. From that 1993, a new spate of the struggles began. And for 6 solid years until 1999, a democratic government never came into being until May 29, 1999. That was when we were able to battle the military to the hilt, and the institution had no choice but to vacate leadership in Nigeria. Now, examining how June 12 was designed, was aimed by Nigerians to lead into egalitarianism and effective development in Nigeria, we must look at it from several angles. Economically, Nigerians were agitating for better lives or better changes, and which led them to believe that, well, if what MKO's party, the SDP, promised then could be put into place, then definitely there would be a positive development economically for an average Nigerian that could hardly afford to feed himself or herself as a then. Many teachers were not being paid. Many that were even being paid were being paid wages that could not take them home. Our universities were constantly going on strikes. I mean, even then. So based on all this, there were the agitations from the economic angle for a transformation that we believe that a democratic dispensation will bring into being. From the ethnic angle, there was an ethnic angle to it, which cannot really be denied. While many believed, and it was true, that Nigeria by then had more of representation in terms of the presidency, in terms of the top echelon of government from the north. There was that agitation from the south that there must be a representative balancing, a representation balancing. However, there was no government that had ever ruled with only one ethnic region before. There will be participation from people from other ethnic sides. But in every nation, there has always been an agitation that, look, power should not be lopsided. There was that agitation from the south, which in any case, and to the glory of Nigeria, to the credit of our northern brothers, there was an understanding, there was a common solidarity by which everybody voted, the majority voted for SDP, notwithstanding the fact that Abiola was a Yoruba man or was from Ogun State. Nigerians completely eliminated the ethnic bias and they voted for the gentleman, Abiola, supported by his deputy, by his vice presidential candidate, Malam King Gibe. And with this, we could see that the ethnic factor became something that Nigerians eliminated completely. They did not allow ethnicity to defeat the common aspiration of a developmental progress for Nigerians. Now, from the political angle, just as analyzed, there was the military versus civilian crisis, which had dominated political discourse in Nigeria for quite a long while. And if you look at the history of Nigeria, at least from 1966, when the first coup was planned and carried out and executed by the likes of Kaduna and Zogu, we will see that Nigeria had so much labored under the heavy jackboots of military determinism. And by the time that Nigerians were calling for a change, and this change came by, the military-civilian crisis was already getting resolved, until unfortunately that watershed election was annulled by Babangida. Thus, Abiola as a person, MKO Abiola as a person will say, stood for unification of Nigeria. He stood as a unifying factor for Nigeria, was a unifying personality from different angles for Nigeria. And with his election, with the role that he had played in the past, be it economically, sports, and what have you, Nigerians rose up. However, June 12 is not just about Abiola. June 12 is not just simply about MKO Abiola or simply like Alfred Rewane and many others that were killed or were silenced or were sent into exile or were maimed. No, or many of us that suffered a lot of losses in the process. No, it wasn't just simply about that. And it is still not just simply about that. It is about the aspiration of Nigerians, the developmental expectations of Nigerians. It is about the agitation of Nigerians for betterment in their collective, in their individual and collective lives, in our educational sector, in our academics, in our political life, in our economic life, in our social life, in our ethnic relationship, in our aspiration as a people to project nation building. These are factors that June 12 actually stands for. And today, just like an interview I granted a newspaper outfit some few days ago, I said, recognizing June 12 as Democracy Day is a watershed again in the history of this nation, because Nigeria had lived in denial for a long time under the various civilian regimes that have come since Obasanjo, whom we expected will even give that recognition to that particular symbolic date in our nation, June 12. But he never did. Yaradua had a short term. He never did. Jonathan, who came thereafter, half-heartedly wanted to make an amendment, which was not acceptable to the people, by renaming University of Lagos, the Great University of Lagos, the only university in Nigeria. Others are, so sorry for those who did not attend University of Lagos that are listening to me. It's just, we are just lucky to be there, so don't be angry. So many of these, thank you. I could see somebody clapping. Thank you very much. Our agitations were along the line of this improvement in the collective existence of Nigerians. But, when the government of Jonathan now wanted to rename University of Lagos Moshood Abiola University, yes, Moshood Abiola stands beyond that. He towers above just mere renaming of an institution after him. It's a question of how many Nigerians have really had a date, a particular date in this nation ascribed to their name, except probably for the Ramuri Chala Mohammed, that whose government and existence we commemorate every February 13. There is not so, while we remember the first coup and some other incidents like that, we definitely do not ascribe such importance to such dates, except for June 12. Now, June 12 stands like the birthday of Moshood Abiola. It stands like the date, the death the day of death of Moshood Abiola. It stands as the date that Moshood Abiola got married. In fact, it is in terms of the recognition of the person, Moshood Abiola, June 12 is very fundamental. And whenever we mention June 12, we definitely remember the personality of Moshood Abiola. But fundamentally, what June 12 stands for most importantly, is what progress has been brought to the lives of the Nigerians. What progress have we recorded? Now, with the government of President Muhammadu Buhari recognizing June 12 as against May 29 as the Democracy Day that Nigerians should commemorate. In fact, it deserves a lot of commendation for that, and it deserves kudos for it. It deserves a medal. However, the medal is not enough. It's, to me, notwithstanding the fact that I am a member of APC, I am a leader of APC, notwithstanding the fact that I was counsel to President Muhammadu Buhari in the election petition against his opponent, Atiku Abubakar. Notwithstanding all this, notwithstanding my personal love for him, when it comes to putting out certain truths to the public domain, we just definitely, if we must love Nigeria much more than we love the president, we must hold our allegiance to the Constitution, to what June 12 stands for, the symbolic nature of June 12, what it actually symbolizes. We must hold firm to all this than just our seat, but we can only guide him by stand for. And to this extent, I want to put certain things in the public domain and for the records. One, June 12 will be better. Sorry, there is June 12 will be better recognized, will be better accorded its place in history if and only if we are able to bring the economic development that Nigerians yearned for, upon which they voted June 12. June 12 will be better recognized by the time that economic prosperity returns to Nigeria. June 12 will be better recognized, will be accorded its place in history, will be accorded the aspiration, the dream of Moshood Abiola and many others who actually died in the course of fighting for June 12, will be better recognized by the time an average Nigerian is able to put food on his or her table. By the time an average Nigerian has his children in school well catered for by the system, that our public higher institutions and the tertiary institutions and even the whole educational institutions are well funded, well catered for. The United Nations stipulates that 27% of our budget should go, of a nation's budget, should go into education. Where a nation is not even able to achieve up to that, by the time progressively 20%, 21%, 22% of your budget is dedicated to education, you are on the right path towards progress. No nation shall make progress, shall make any progress beyond its educational development. And it is only where we are able to bring such educational development that we can have the future already mapped out for greater progress. What is the technological advancement that Nigeria has recorded today? Some few days ago, a head of one government agency, Raw Materials Research Development Center or something, came to the National Assembly and said that they had, in 33 years of existence, and said that they had been able to devise a technology for preservation, for making kilishi. Of all things in this world, the technology for kilishi is the only, when some African countries are, like Rwanda, are already aspiring to go to the moon, we are talking about manufacturing or kilishi, which an average, a poor friend of mine out there can do, which my wife can do, without even projecting it as an achievement. So it's a shame until we are able to develop our educational standing along this line. Abiola funded a lot of educational institutions, and by which he endowed a lot of academic researches. And without academic researches being brought to the fore, we stand no chance of being able to bring the necessary technological development into existence. What is the standing of Nigeria among all other nations when it comes to scientific development, innovations, and inventions. We are not there. We cannot even say we are backward. No, we are not even there. That is one implication. So for June 12 to be adequately recognized, to be accorded its place in history, the symbol that it's actually the aspiration of June, behind June 12, we need to let the government realize, and the government must realize this, that we must work more on our educational institutions. ASU threatening to go on strike and whatever could be causing it, let us frontally address it. And when it comes to, there are so many other issues for the economic, that is the economic, the educational, from the political angle. Today, there are agitations from so many parts of Nigeria calling for restructuring. It is fundamental that we address the inherent weaknesses that are drawing this nation back. By the time people are calling for restructuring, genuinely let us restructure. Let us look into the Constitution. If today we have 68 items in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that are in the exclusive legislative list for the federal government, and we have only 28 items in the concurrent legislative list that are also shared. These 28 items are still shared between the federal government and the state government. Definitely, we are not running a federal structure. We are running a unitary structure. And there is no way, if you read into political theoretics, fundamentally, I will refer to books of Chief Obafemi Awolowo on the political future or the development, the political development of Nigeria. He postulated that a nation that is unilingual, that has one language, that such a nation can run effectively on unitarism, can run a unitary system. But where a nation is multilingual, has so many languages, maybe 3 or more languages, like Nigeria, that has up to about 350 ethnic languages, definitely such a nation cannot run on unitarism, but rather federalism. Now, looking at our federal, the so-called federalism, it is unitarism disguised as federalism. We need to look at this. And this is why many state governments are so weak, are so poor. Many states in Nigeria are not viable. For instance, my state of Osun, till today, we know that what the state is making can hardly make it survive. All the states now depend, except for Lagos, probably, all the states now depend on allocation from the federal government, and they go there as beggars. This wasn't the case in 1963. Under the 1960-1963 constitutions, the regions then controlled substantial amount of power when it comes to legislative areas, and by which their executives were able to achieve more for the nation. Then we must look at how the 3 arms of government politically now are even interrelating. There is no separation of powers as such in Nigeria. We have a judiciary that is prostrate, that is always begging for funds every year for the past 30 years of my life that I can say I've been an adult. Because today, right now I'm 51. At least in the past about 32 or 33 years that I can say, yes, I'm an adult. There is hardly any year that the judiciary will not, in the speech of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, will not complain of inadequate funding. At the NBA conference of last year in Lagos, a chief judge of a state came and said, well, there's nothing the judiciary can do. We are at the mercy of the executive governor, the governor that is giving us money. How can we fight him? Then that means that whatever the governor wants, the judiciary of that particular state has been doing. So nobody is there to even curtail the excesses of the governor. So that is why the executive order number 10, promulgated by President Muhammadu Buhari some few days ago, might be is an effort towards gravitating Nigeria back to judicial autonomy, legislative and judicial autonomy. Majority of the state governors have been enjoying absolute power, whereby the allocation meant for the judiciary, for the legislature under the Constitution will first of all come to the executive. The executive will now be giving them like a potentate, like a monarch that is just giving crumbs to its subjects. No, that cannot be. Independence of the judiciary is a cornerstone of separation of powers. Where there is no separation of powers, there cannot be prevalence of rule of law. And how can we exist without rule of law? How can we exist under the rule of man? And this is where some of the challenges are politically, which ultimately is affecting the system of government as we are running it. Look at it from this angle as well. One aspiration that Nigerians were yearning for behind June 12 was that even our local governments should be able to get a measure of independence. By the time the money comes to the state government, and the state government now says, okay, look, we give you some little funds. The essence of local government is to bring governance closer to the people. By the time what gets to them is what we only pay the salaries of the staff, and the chairman and his cohorts will also embezzle the remaining, because it's too little for them to do any project as well. They will embezzle the remaining, and the whole local government will be the one to suffer for it. This is an anomaly which should not continue. These are part of the agitations that are behind June 12. Until we are able to effectively restructure Nigeria back to its federal structure, there must be fiscal federalism that will enable the state governments to have more powers, to be able to generate more resources from the local settings. While in any case, it is not just a blame of the Constitution. It is not just a blame of the federal government or the structure that we run. Most of the state governments too have not utilized the resources at their disposal. When I was running for governorship election at the level of Osun State about 2 years ago, I pointed all these out, and I made it very clear that, look, there are so many things that we have as opportunity that we simply equally need to look inwards. And, without going into all that, we will encourage the state governments to adequately use the resources at their disposal to ensure that, and this can equally come to be where the system is made to run, where the system is made to function, just like the dream behind June 12, that Nigerians are yearning that the system must effectively perform to put in place a better future for an average Nigerian. Where we are able to achieve this, we will have accorded better recognition to June 12. Otherwise, MKO Abiola would have died in vain. The annulment of June 12 would have just been in vain. The aspirations of Nigerians that were rubbished would have just been, everything would have just been in vain. All those that died, all those that were chased into exile, all those that were expelled from the universities, from the colleges of education, the polytechnics, all those student leaders that were jailed, on account of June 12, would have all suffered in vain. And at the end of the day, what is the essence of struggling in vain? Nobody desires to achieve such an outcome. It is along this line that we must realize that the essence of June 12 is not just simply to name a stadium after Abiola, or probably to name a stadium after somebody else. The politicians who eventually are the beneficiaries of June 12, they have not given good accounts of their purported agitation, because many of them came only to benefit from June 12 agitation. They never really contributed to June 12. Many ran into exile under the ostensible pretense that they were about to be killed or to be arrested and detained. Many ran away, and majority of us that actually stood by and fought, are the ones that are nursing the wounds that we sustained from that particular struggle. Majority of them that ran abroad came back and became the beneficiaries. How much are they really given to June 12? The agitation for June 12 was sectionalized at a point, but today, with the recognition given by Buhari, definitely it has become a national issue. At least everybody is resting at home now, except anybody who doesn't want to rest. So even if you disagree with June 12, you definitely would take this holiday. And if you are taking this particular holiday as a holiday, what we actually need, what we desire, is something that will make the struggle of June 12 to be of beneficial importance that Nigerians actually desired that it should have. The beneficial importance is, one, good food on our table, our ability to fund for ourselves economically, our ability to access education, our ability to access justice, our ability to aspire without inhibitions, within the political setting of Nigeria. Majority of the politicians have debased, they have destroyed the essence of our struggle for June 12. What has become the essence of the struggle for June 12? You see political parties that are imposing candidates that don't allow internal democracy. What is the essence of June 12? When we struggled as a people, democratic development, democratic attainment, whereby we are able to elect our leaders voluntarily without an influence. But they have impoverished the people, politicians in Nigeria have impoverished the people to the extent that the people cannot effectively elect their leaders. It is impossible for Nigerians to effectively elect their leaders, because during elections, you discover that even ordinary party something, now they are claiming that they want to do direct primary in Edo. Yes, direct primary would be a good idea where the structure and the infrastructure are rightly in place, no doubt about it. And one, such a party that wants to do direct primary must have in place the register of members. I'm not too sure that at the level of APC till today, I doubt if there is register of members in place. Yes, I'm saying it authoritatively as somebody who is a part of the process, that we do not have till now in most of the states, if not all over Nigeria. We do not have, I mean, this is a disheartening thing. The primary we did, direct primary we said we did for the presidency, the president got probably about 22 million votes. And when the election itself came by, did he have up to 22 million? So if members of a particular party could give 22 million votes to their candidate, and when the major election now came, that all Nigerians will participate, it did not have up to 22. That means that that particular primary or direct primary is a fraud. Now, they are saying that, okay, they want to do it in Edo. There has been a lot of agitations about this. That look, what can INEC, that is supposed to supervise direct primary, can it monitor direct primary, this direct primary in all the wards in a state? Is it possible they will send only five officers from their headquarters down to the states? Can 5 officers monitor the election all over? The same political hierarchy in the states that are in control within the party will now be the ones that will determine the outcome of such an election. And you discover a situation where results of such a primary election had been written before the election itself. Then you are talking about democracy. And these are the people that are coming out to celebrate June 12th. They are only dancing on the grave of Moshood Abiola. They are only dancing. Majority of the politicians are only dancing on the grave of June 12th. They are not sincere with the aspirations of Nigerians behind June 12th. It is along this line that we must agitate and let people know that, yes, I take note that I have only 5 minutes left. Yes, I'm rounding off. Now, we must let people know that it is important, it is fundamental that the aspirations behind June 12th should be what politicians should actually address. Not just mere jamboree of, yes, June 12th has come and then we take a holiday. It will not be different, symbolically, from just any other holiday. Whereas June 12th is meant to be political, is meant to be economic, is meant to be social. I mean, it's supposed to be a ramifying factor about Nigeria. It's supposed to be about the aspiration of Nigerians for the kind of development that we actually desire and we want. So it is along this line of reasoning that I'm saying that the egalitarian essence of June 12th, the developmental essence of June 12th, the aspiration of June 12th, all these have not been met by the state of things in Nigeria today. We still have a long way to go. Politicians, our leaders, have not given accurate representation of what June 12th is really meant for. It's not just about a holiday. It's not just about Moshood Abiola. It's not just about eulogizing Moshood Abiola. Yes, he deserves all the eulogies, no doubt. But it is about you and me. It's about our children. It's about our children's children. You know, generations, yet to come. If we are not able to meet the aspirations of all these people, if the way we still run politics, that the election will come and the winner of the election will be determined by the gun and not by the ballot, and it will be a question of ta. And some people in our party who call themselves Democrats, who call themselves revolutionaries, are eulogizing that process of ta. Lunacy is worrying majority of Nigerians. It is complete idiocy, political idiocy, for people to be celebrating a government or a system that was bequeathed through the barrels of the gun in the name of an election. That is not, it is not sanity at all. And we cannot compare an average Nigerian politician that indulges in this with sane people who are running other countries of the world. It is a complete aberration and a complete travesty of what is known as democracy. So it is along this line that we must drum it to our people that this shenanigan must stop. That is the essence of June 12th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Hello?
Hello? Right, thank you very much.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay. Thank you very much for that wonderful delivery. And I'm sure our people on the platform are really enjoying the lecture. We have a lot of questions already lined up for you. People are asking very, very serious questions about June 12th. But I'll start from the question that says that we talked about laudable feats of the Nigerian regions in 1963. Is it possible or realistic to return to regionalism and still achieve such feats with today's caliber of politicians? So that is the first question. I don't know if you want to take that before we move on to...
I can see the questions as well. And I think these are very fundamental questions. And I'll try to be brief as much as possible so that I don't eat into the time of the other presenter as well. Yes, when you talk about regionalism, we must understand one thing. What led to the creation of states? What actually led to the creation of states? We ran regions, they were effective, yes, to a large extent, no doubt. However, there were certain agitations that led to the creation of states by which the regions were dismantled. And what were these agitations? Fundamental is the cries of the minority, which led to the Henry Willing Commission of 1957. If you look at it, there were agitations by the minority that the for the right to be recognized. The people of Ogoja, the people of Calabar region areas and what have you, were clamoring that in the east they were being dominated by the majority who were the Igbos. In the north, we had the agitation. In fact, I think it is in the north that we probably have the largest number of languages in Nigeria. For instance, the ethnic people called the Tangale, I discovered when I moved around some parts of the north. The Tangale people are different from the Waja people, the Izibasi or something people, and they are different from the Hausa, the Fulani. So we have so many languages like that. These minorities in the middle belts, they were complaining about the majority dominating them. Now, that was what led to the political research that can we continue as regions like this? And the implication is that it might be better to create more states, which will reduce the conflicts among the ethnic nationalities that were composed in the various regions. That will give them more representation. So we cannot just throw away, because it is natural for human beings to yearn for the flesh pot of Egypt. That is a figurative expression. When the Israelis were liberated from the dominance of Pharaoh and they were being taken away, after about 40 days and they were suffering, they were hungry in the wilderness, they say, when we were under Pharaoh, we were getting flesh. So that is exactly what is happening now, that Nigerians are thinking that probably they should go back to regionalism. But we can make the states work. We can make them function by effectively restructuring Nigeria along the proper lines, whereby more powers are devolved. I'm trying to now hit into the question of Alpha Aziz, which say that what is the way for restructuring? Now, what's the way forward for restructuring? Now, by the time we want to restructure, we need to look at our constitution. You see that majority of the items are in the exclusive legislative list, which no state can tamper with at all. That means that, okay, many areas where the states are supposed to be getting resources from are now in the hands of the center. Value-added tax, all the money will be collected all over the federation and everything will go to the center before they will now be shared. Now, the federal government takes about 63%, about 65% of the entire resources when it comes to allocation, the sharing of revenue sharing formula. The federal government takes about 65%. It's only 35% that the states, the 36 states, are now sharing together with local governments. I mean, what sense does that make? Now, it is not the federal government that want to do the road that passes by Obafemi Awolowo Way in Lagos, because they will say it is a federal road. Any road declared by the National Assembly to be Tronque Road under the Constitution then it's a federal road. And with this, the federal government is biting more than it can ever chew. These were roads that were under the control of the regions in the past. That is when the regionalism was working. Most of these roads, provision of water and some other things like that, were meant for the regions, and they were effectively delivered. I grew up with a water supply from the Water Corporation when I was a kid. You know, today, even in Lagos State, where it's supposed to be, where they still say Center of Excellence, although we can't find the excellence, you know, you discover that the water is not coming to most homes. I'm the one supplying water to myself, and they still say that because I have a bowl, I should come and be paying government. Are you the one who dug the hole for me? Are you the one who put the machine there or whatever? And these are the things that make it impossible for the government to effectively tax the citizens. Taxation fails where the government probably is irresponsible to the extent of being unable to provide the necessary resources for the social amenities for the people, or where the government has, you know, engaged in a lot of irresponsibility in terms of maybe investment and whatever, that they do not even have the courage to say, because people will say, all the money that you get, what did you use it for? So that is why, in terms of legislative items, in terms of restructuring along this line, the 28 items by the Constitution, even under the concurrent legislative list, those areas where the states have powers, they are still shared with the federal government. They are not exclusive to the states. And where the federal government has made a law to corner resources on a particular item in the concurrent list that are supposed to be shared, if the law is comprehensive enough, it has been interpreted that it would mean that the federal government has covered the field, the doctrine of covering the field. So where the federal government is deemed to have covered the field, the state cannot go there anymore to make any income from it. So it is along this line that we need to look into this. Then another fundamental thing that we need to look at is the idea of the quota system that has become so permanent as part of our lifestyle. Yes, quota system, federal structure, or what they call it, they are fundamental, they are important to a nation that is just trying to find its feet. Now, if in 1950-something, in 1960-something, the northern part of Nigeria was regarded as educationally disadvantaged, and in 2020, the same region is still regarded as educationally disadvantaged, the leaders have a problem. The leaders have a lunatic problem that they need to be cured. If you cannot, how long did it take Dubai to develop up to where it is now? Up to about 1990s. And what have you, Dubai, the majority of areas in Dubai were still rural areas. But today you can see what they have achieved, educationally, politically, economically, and what have you. And Nigeria is still regarding a section of its own populace as educationally disadvantaged. What are the governors in those states? What are they using the resources at their disposal? Educationally, what are they using those resources for? You now see a governor, they will say he has 36 billion stashed abroad. Or the Abacha loot is still being recovered. Assuming Abacha even used the money, all the money that they said he stole abroad, to develop education in the north, Nigeria will be the better for it. Yes, let him be parochial. Yes, that he only developed, assuming that he only developed the north. That Nigeria would have been, but now what the majority of the governors have developed is Boko Haram, because vast majority are uneducated. Now, it is not fair to our northern brothers and sisters. These are brilliant elements. Somebody asked a question on the platform some few days ago, that is it possible to produce a person of Okonjo Iweala in Daura? And I said, why not? If it is possible to produce Aliyu Jilani from Sokoto, and people said, yes, that is true. I know of many of my northern brothers, northern friends, like Seidu Bello, Nasir Kura, who are exceptional. They are names that you might not know. You might be thinking of people like Senusi, the former emir of Kano alone. No, those are not the only that are brilliant. I have come across many northerners, like Ahmed Wada. He's a lawyer in Kano who is doing exceptionally well. Now, these are people that we need to look at. An average Almajiri is a potential billionaire, is a potential professor, is a potential aeronautical engineer that we need to invest in. And forget about all this idea of quota system and what have you. They are permanently making use of this to deceive the people so that the northerners can continue wallowing in educational backwardness. No, Our people don't deserve that. If there must be a revolution for this, there must be a revolution for it. And we must make sure that we vanquished all these things that they are doing. So these are ways to restructure Nigeria, to make sure that a section will not be permanently made underdeveloped. If 50 years ago, the people are educational, how many years does it take somebody to be educationally advantaged? So it is unfair to the people there. To Mr. Dr. Oloke, there have been a lot of, I don't know if I can be taking the questions.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Go
ahead.
I'm supposed to be getting
Go ahead.
So there have been a lot of negative reactions regarding the executive order 10 by the president. Can you please shed light on the position of the constitution in ensuring the independence of judiciary, especially when governors are challenging the legitimacy of the order to the extent of challenging it in court? Yes, I want the governors to go to court to challenge the legitimacy of this executive order 10. Yes, it will enrich our jurisprudence. However, with respect to my own personal position, I'll tell you that Executive Order 10 is a welcome development as far as I am concerned. And this is my take on it. If you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it guarantees it guarantees a measure of judicial independence for the judiciary. It requires the judiciary to be independent. However, in terms of financial allocation and what have you, unfortunately, our government, the people that have been presiding over the affairs, feel that it is rather better for the executive continue dominating the judiciary. And with this, they have been running along that line. In 2017, there was an alteration to the Constitution whereby the National Assembly, amended the Constitution through the fourth alteration. And this fourth alteration actually included the legislature as part of the autonomy. It included the legislature. That means that from 2017, it is not only the judiciary alone that was entitled to financial autonomy, including the legislature. And with respect to the judiciary, the funds meant for the judiciary will go directly to the head of the judiciary. That's what the Constitution said from that particular point in time. With that constitutional position, it behoves all arms of government, be it executive, legislative, or judicial, to ensure that that particular provision of the Constitution is recognized and implemented. Unfortunately, the governors have been living in denial of this constitutional provision. They rather prefer to continue the system that they have been running, where the head of the judiciary, the chief judge, will always cry to the governor, for financial help. Always. That has always been the position. The head of the judiciary will always cry to the governor for allocation. Oga, we need to buy something in the judiciary. We need cars for judicial officers. Then it is the governor that will now buy cars for the judiciary. By the time the governor, because if you look at Section 121 of the Constitution, this is the provision that guarantees, independence for the judiciary in terms of autonomy for the judiciary. But where the head of the judiciary has to go to the governor or to the president to beg for money, knowing that they cannot function except at the mercy of the governor, there is no way such judiciary can be autonomous, can perform its function adequately. So along this line, the president now looked at it and he knew that lots of the money meant for the judiciary, for the legislature, will be pocketed by the executives at the levels of the states. He now came up with the Executive Order 10. Executive orders have been defined by the judiciary to mean a legislation made by the executive constitutionally made by the executive to put the provision of the constitution or the provision of a law into effect. So with this, the implication is that when executive orders are made, they are meant to implement the constitution or implement a particular statute. So executive order 10 was meant for that purpose, to ensure that this money will not end up with the executive at the state level alone. It will get to the judiciary, it will get to the legislature. The president did the same thing with respect to the local government funds too, whereby he mandated that, okay, this money must get to the local government, although most of the state governors have been collecting the money back. And since they were the ones that put these people in offices as chairmen, as councillors and what have you, who are not independent, when they give them the money openly through the check, then the local government chairman will now go behind and return. If it is 150 million to one local government in the state, it will now return 100 million back to the state. 50 million will now be held ultimately by the local government. We are doing a lot of disservice to ourselves. We are doing a hell lot of disservice to ourselves. So if you look at it, by the time we restructure from the federal, giving more states, more allocations, opportunity to the state governments, their own greed too will reduce and they would look less towards what the local governments are entitled to. So this is the essence of the executive order 10. And if you look at my interview in leadership today, you will see that I analyzed this more fully. Then to Akim Onimago Onijangbon, that's what I call him. One of the unfortunate things about Nigeria democracy is the fact that it's one-sided. To become anything politically, you have to be chosen by some political elite, not people. How can we go about political reordering in the country to ensure political freedom? Now, that question meant for me.
May I quickly interrupt, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would just like you to take that question with this additional one, because that may just be the final one you will take because of time constraint. The additional one is this. The democracy we run in Nigeria, as we have it,
yes.
Do you think it can deliver the aspirations of June 12?
Okay.
The aspirations of economic and technological development, educational development, political restructuring, and all that.
Right.
The kind of democracy we run.
Yes.
Can it deliver these aspirations? Do we have any alternative?
Okay. A friend of ours, Mr. Matters Emeribe, is equally on the line, and I'm using this opportunity to answer his questions through this webinar as well. And if you look at the structure we have in Nigeria, it right now cannot deliver upon the aspirations of the people. And why are we saying this? I've addressed it actually when I was giving my main talk. Probably the person who asked the question came a little bit late into the system. If you look at the situation in Nigeria today, political leaders are chosen by some individuals, not by the people. And that starts from the internal primary elections of the political parties. When parties are supposed to hold to hold party primaries, you discover that one person will win the primary election, and the powers that be will say they nullified the winner. They will put their own choice there. They will say, no, this is the person we prefer. It happened a lot in Osun during the last local government election, where people who won the election were hounded out of town. Many of them were, the government that left in Osun had a particular magistrate before whom they would take you once you protest that, okay, you were the winner of the primary, they cannot annul your election. They will just arrest you, take you before that magistrate. That magistrate was waiting to just send you to jail in Ilesha. So in fact, by the time you spend 21 days in Ilesha prison, the election would have been over. And that was how they brought majority of the people that are presiding over our local governments in Osun into play. And this happened in many states. And that is why a governor will come into power. He doesn't see the people as capable of electing any of their leaders, insofar as he is the governor. He will nullify the former election that brought the incumbent local government chairmen and councillors. He will just say that I hereby dissolve the local. So now, these are supposed to be democratic leaders who are behaving like military. What is the difference between, okay, when under the former governor in Osun, local government elections, primary elections were nullified by some elements, including under his watch, under his sanction. The implication is that he has acted just like Babangida, who nullified local government, the presidential election of June 12th. And that governor or his subordinate or his surrogates, who his lieutenants, who perpetrated that haste on the people, if they now come out to be celebrating June 12th, you can see that that means that they are hypocrites. And even if they claim that they have now repented, no, they are still hypocrites, because repentance of hypocrisy, of a hypocrite, is itself an hypocrisy. Repentance of a hypocrite is in itself a hypocrisy. So we must realize this, that look, such elements cannot give birth to democratic process. And that is why it's taking us to the question asked by that person, that look, the system as it exists right now cannot guarantee a democratic process for us until Nigerians themselves, one, we rise up, and we need to rise up effectively. And how do we do this? When politicians come with their crumbs of 2,000 naira, 500 naira for you to come and vote for them, you must realize that, look, they do not have any power except for so long as you recognize them as your leader. If they say somebody is a leader and people are not following him, he's on a stroll, he's not leading. He's just on a walking, on a leisure walk. So until we realize this, one, the majority of the people are so poor that they cannot even reason anymore. And when the 2,000 naira comes, they don't see a reason why they should reject it. Until we are able, we need to go out, conscientize them, and equally engage the system. And this is where any conscious leader, if President Muhammadu Buhari wants to bequeath something democratic to the people, he must make sure that Edo governorship election from the primaries of the party of APC and other political parties are not allowed to be rigged. That they are not allowed to be rigged. It is the duty of INEC to conduct such elections. And where INEC, if it is the duty of INEC, INEC is a federal government agency. The federal government must make sure that its parastatals, security parastatals, should not just be watching while a particular political party or a particular set of people are rigging the election. No, the president should not allow that. He did it during the Anambra election. He didn't allow rigging because the police, no rigging takes place without the conspiracy of the police and the soldiers. Take this from me, because any thug that will go and steal the ballot paper or use the gun, once they see that there is animosity, there is not going to be room for it, from the security agencies, they run away. But it is only possible for them to do all this when they steal the ballot box. The police are there to give them the parapets, the cover, to effectively carry it from one local government to the to the state collation center. So the president refused the anti-progressive elements in Anambra, and some federal government ministers who wanted to use the Inspector General of Police in 2016, I think, when the Anambra election was to take place. He refused them that opportunity. The moment the IG then knew that if you try it, you are in soup, he ran away. And that was why Obiano was able to win that election. And you see that the day he was declared winner, where did he first go? He went to Abuja to go and thank Mr. President. Why thank him, Mr. President? He was not a member of his party. He was not an Anambra resident. Yes, he's a Nigerian and a president for all. But it wasn't but because the president allowed democracy to take place in that place, the man was grateful. Because if the president had chosen to allow the police and the soldiers to be used to rig that election, the man wouldn't have won. But when it came to Kogi, the president looked the other way. The president looked the other way. I must mention, we shouldn't be afraid to say all this. The president looked the other way and allowed rigging. Yes, he's a member of my party, no doubt. But look, the day our allegiance is to our political parties as against Nigeria, the day our allegiance is to one Godfather as against the Constitution of Nigeria, that day we are finished. And all this lunacy people are doing by now paying lip service to June 12 and what have you, I will never be party to such shenanigan. We have to say the way it is, notwithstanding whether we're PDP members, APC members, C members, or SDP members. Whatever party you belong to, Nigeria should be first. The day you allow your sentiment for one useless political party to override the interests of Nigerians, you are a walking dead. Just forget about you. And if you are now among those that are complaining that Nigeria is not good, Nigeria is backward and what have you, you are among the people who made it to be backward, to be unprogressive. It will be complete lunacy on your side to be complaining about Nigeria. In fact, God will not forgive you for being party to such a shenanigan. And it is along this line I am saying that for us to effectively deliver, our political parties must be purged of the idiotic practices that have become inherent in them. No godfather should determine the fate of the people. A godfather will be permanent, a man who has achieved politically. Nelson Mandela was more relevant out of power than when he was in power. All over the world, they called him a citizen of the whole world. They were carrying him all around. And that is where the current leaders should be careful. Jonathan, as poor as he was when he was in government, allowed the democratic process to take place in 2015. Yes, they intended to rig, but at least international yearnings, the yearnings of Nigerians prevailed on him and his courts. Though Erubebe tried, but at the end of the day, they allowed the democratic process to take place. And this is why President Muhammadu Buhari came into being. If President Muhammadu Buhari is not able to achieve this thing we are talking about, as to reduce, if not exterminate, rigging during his own time, to showcase these qualities of tenacity, of sternness that he was known for, he would have failed as a leader. I don't want him to fail. I love him so much. If he were to be a woman, I would have proposed to marry him. But here we are, that saying that, look, President Muhammadu Buhari, we love you. I was your lawyer. I mean, I wouldn't have been your lawyer. You didn't pay me. I mean, how much did you pay? You paid the stipend. Is that what I'm collecting from other clients that are sustaining me as a lawyer? No. But I came out to defend you, to be party to your team because of my belief in you. Please don't disappoint me. The elections that are coming, use them to showcase up till 2022 in Osun, up to 2023 all over Nigeria. Use them to showcase that you are a leader capable of living up to your words. And that would have been, by this, you would have substantially helped Nigeria to achieve something good for it. Otherwise, by the time you leave and all these ills still persist, we have the problems of Boko Haram still there. The government has to up its ante along this line, but at least we are talking about political something today. So please, it's along this line that I feel that where we are able to achieve all this in the immediate, we stand a chance of making Nigeria greater in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm very, very impressed personally that you are able to speak to some of the issues agitating my mind. For the sake of participants, let me quickly remind us that we've been talking about June 12, political struggle as a pathway to egalitarian and future of Nigeria's development. Barrister Goke, I'm still going to, you're going to hang on while the second lecturer takes the stage. Please don't go away because I'm still going to give you about 2-3 minutes to give us a summary of what you think is the solution. You've mentioned a lot of them, but I would like you to still do a summary of that in a few sentences so that our people will be able to go and be a bit comfortable, because we live in a country where no one is no longer comfortable. So I'm going to bring on board the second speaker, and that is my dear brother, Moshood Owolowo. Brother Moshood, can you please unmute yourself? You're brilliant. So you have the floor.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum to everyone watching, and peace and blessings of Allah be unto you all. I'd like to thank the organizers of this historic event, and also thank all those who have tuned in to listen to the lectures, and also the previous speaker, K-Rad. I intend to address the issue of June 12 political struggle as the pathway to egalitarianism and future of Nigeria's development via three sections. One is political struggle, two is egalitarianism, and three is development. Of what struggle is as individuals, from an individual perspective, what did our creator tell us? What is our default setting? What makes us unique? Is us being the best of nations for no other reason other than enjoining good and forbidding evil. That is by default. In our society, we are faced with all sorts of evils, and we have to struggle against it naturally. We're even struggling internally against whispers to do evil, and we overcome it with good. From our daily lives, we struggle every day since we've been born. We struggle within the family. We struggle to get heard. We struggle to go to school. We struggle to graduate. People struggle to get a job, struggle to get married, struggle to have kids and raise them, and struggle to keep your marriage intact as well. But from a collective perspective, when it affects society, that's when the political angle comes in. It becomes a political struggle. You can be selfish or an individual oriented approach to doing things wouldn't work. From a June 12 perspective as political struggle, let's take the case of our late president-elect GCFR MK Abiola. Blessed with all the things of this world, a billionaire, united the whole nation via a Muslim ticket and beat his own opponent in his domain. But unfortunately, it was annulled by Babangida. And during his incarceration, I'm personally aware of overtures to Chief MK Abiola of abandoning his mandate, giving it to him by millions of Nigerians. But he said no, because this is not just about me. It's about all those who voted for me. It's about all those who stood against tyranny, especially under the military dictatorship. And he said, even if it cost him his life, that is struggle right there. And we can all learn from that, because he knew the position he took may cost him his life. And he did, just like the similar case with President Morsi and Sisi in Egypt. It cost Morsi's life. So that's why as individuals, we must always purify our intentions. Know what we're doing it for the sake of good. That struggle is consistent and will continue to happen. Another example, though many people died, many of us suffered incurred losses, families. I also like to mention the late Alhaja Kudirat Abiola. She also struggled against evil, against injustices. And she knew the position she took may cost her life as well. But she didn't relent. And she died at 44, a mother of 7. She never saw her kids grow up. And in her honor, for those who are not aware, the Kudirat Corner in New York, where the Nigerian consulate is situated by the 44th Street, is named after her. So we can see from these two cases that I just mentioned, which are peculiar to June 12, that we always be on the side of good as against evil. Now, to go into the topic of egalitarianism, which is the RY section, the second part. Egalitarianism effectively means social equality. Everybody is equal. Nobody is better than any other person. Nobody has two heads. Nobody should have certain privileges over others. And that's a fundamental aspect which has been mentioned from an Islamic perspective as well, that all mankind Indeed, we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. So, from that perspective, we must approach things from humility, not thinking we have certain privileges or rights or betterment in terms of material things over others. Even if you are blessed in that regard, you humble yourselves and think of how you can help your society collectively. You have to have a collective approach. But the reality is, which we should ask ourselves is, from a Nigerian perspective, is egalitarianism possible without strong institutions, without the institutions that will make policies effective, especially from a mass orientation point of view, not just for ruling class. What we've had in Nigeria for decades are successive administrations focusing on just a tiny percentage. What has been the benefit since 1999 of June 12 to the masses? Abiola's campaign was Hope 93. He campaigned, the Hope 93 manifesto was farewell to poverty. So he wasn't thinking about himself, wasn't thinking about the ruling class, which he belonged, which he's been blessed, from poverty, and he rose to the top echelons of society. But he was thinking about the people, that how can we make our policies transform people's lives, the average person. And that's the first time I think I saw hope in people's aspirations, even those who were not interested in politics or didn't even trust the military, because there's been many times they moved the goalpost on the transition. People trusted that, okay, this may actually work. And they came out in mass vote thinking our futures are going to be better after that. Obviously, IBB ruined that, but we must not forget the essence of why that process was initiated in the first instance. It was to transform the lives of people, generations yet unborn. So that's the egalitarianism aspect of Open 93. Now, our current reality is this, and I must say this emphatically. Obasanjo should never have made May 29 Democracy Day. It's madness. Just 2 weeks before June 12th, he did it to spite Abiola. I'm not mincing words here. It was personal agenda against Abiola, considering they both grew up in Abeokuta, went to the same school, and people told him, advised him, but no. And even worse than that, he didn't recognize June 12 throughout his 8 years as president. So whatever anybody may have against President Buhari, he righted that wrong, corrected that anomaly by making June 12 the official and proper Democracy Day, because it was a day people put aside their differences, spoke with one voice, and decided for a pathway to the future. It was a Muslim ticket. Unfortunately, I don't think that is possible now. Maybe, maybe not. 2023 will tell, based on the gladiators that have put their hearts in the ring. We'll see how that pans out. But then it wasn't a big deal. So it shows you how many decades of setback the annulment by IBB caused to the polity. And we don't even know how we're going to, or when we're going to recover from that. So back to what I was saying about institutions, strong institutions. I remember when Obama went to, I think, Ghana, and said Africa doesn't need strong men, it needs strong institutions. And he started off a debate about strong men versus strong institutions. I personally believe President Buhari is a strong man, and he can build strong institutions before he leaves, and he shouldn't waste the opportunity. Because after his era, I don't know if there's going to be other strong men in that class, because I think he might retire that class and put them into political oblivion. So this is a key chance for him. And it takes time. Building institutions takes time. Let's be honest with ourselves. Using US as an example, because we're using the presidential system of government, when George Washington, the first president of the United States, completed 2 terms, his supporters told him to go for a 3rd term, and it was very popular, but he chose not to and stepped aside. I'm not running again, even though he could. He started a tradition which lasted at least over a century, but there was a problem. It wasn't enshrined in the Constitution. So 30 presidents later, around 1940, to be precise, Franklin D. Roosevelt decided to go for a 3rd term. And 4 years later, 1944, went for a 4th term and won. But he died in office. And Harry Truman took over as vice president. So they decided, wait, we can't have this again where people can go for unlimited terms. So they did the 22nd Amendment and enshrined it in the Constitution, so you can't go for 2 terms. Unfortunately, someone like Obasanjo tried that in Nigeria with his 3rd term agenda, wanted to truncate democracy and the Constitution, specifically Section 137, subsection 1B, about the term limits of presidents. Wanted to go for a 3rd term and would have caused a lot of setbacks, in my opinion. But the people resisted. That is the advantage of having strong institutions. They protect the people, though they're not there yet. Why I said it took 154 years from Washington to Truman to ratify the 22nd Amendment. How long have we been practicing this democracy, for example? 99, 21 years. You know, we're talking about countries who've done it for 2 centuries. So we have to be realistic about some of our expectations as well, though it doesn't stop us from making our demands. One of the key areas which I have been vocal about over the years, particularly all the articles I've written in the past on June 12 and 9, is our terrible culture of with Atiku Abubakar and Molade Sharafa Yusuf, I think, asking about the investments in the energy sector. Atiku mentioned what they did under him as VP, what the Yar'Adua government did, and what Jonathan did. And all the billions that were wasted literally flushed down the toilets because people were paid up front and they didn't deliver. No delivery. And to top it off, nobody was being brought to book. So basically, people were paid up front. They didn't deliver on energy projects, and nobody has been arrested or questioned about that. Things like that make you question the efficacy of institutions like EFCC and ICPC. We just found out about the senator who was in prison, convicted ex-governor, who's been released now. He's back in the Senate again. So having strong institutions is key to making egalitarianism function properly in a society. The judiciary can be compromised. The police force as well needs to be revamped. The independence, particular independence of the judiciary is key. You can't keep postponing corruption cases in perpetuity, and the culprits are left off the hook. There was an article I wrote to commemorate June 12 last year, 20 years of June 12. And I made some recommendations which some people found a bit harsh. But I'm a realist. I understand the Nigerian mentality, how people think, how people reason, the culture ethos as eaten deep into the society, and something drastic will be required to ameliorate the situation. When President Buhari came, for example, there was a lot of anxiety. And people thought, oh, yes, finally, he's going to wage a war against corruption. Some people said they'll go on exile. Some people said he's going to jail all of us. There was apprehension, which is good for society. Unfortunately, when heads didn't roll, people got comfortable again and continued with their corrupt practices, even though not as visible as it was under Jonathan, which just made a mess of the whole thing. So some of the recommendations I made were about judicial officers, for example, if they're found guilty of obstructing justice or taking bribe in connivance with criminals, should be stripped of their right to practice the law profession and cannot have any dealings with government. Police officers found guilty of abating corruption executed. Law enforcement officers must only comprise those with high ethical standards. All children and grandchildren of those convicted should forfeit any profits from the criminal activities of their parents and barred from holding any public offices, nor have dealings with the government for life. If you are involved in armed robbery, kidnapping, human trafficking, you get the death. If you're involved in rape, which is a big issue now in Nigeria, you should get castrated, straight up. No need to beat about the bush. You rape someone, you get castrated, you won't do it again. If you're caught embezzling public funds or you're involved in 419 or advanced fee fraud, life imprisonment or even death penalty, depending on the gravity of the crime. I have while I was making the recommendations called EJE. EJE is Eje in Yoruba language. It means blood. And it stands for execution, jail, or exile. Those are your three options. You loot public funds, either you're executed, jailed, or you go on exile. The choice is yours. When we say we are fighting corruption, it's not rhetoric. We don't play lip service to fighting corruption. Corruption has damaged the entire fabric of the society, physically and mentally. We're decades behind on infrastructural development, and all can be traced to corruption. So if you don't tackle that as an evil, we continue to have problems thinking, oh, we can come up with a policy, things will be fine, just bring the best brains. No, the best brains will come to Nigeria and they'll be overwhelmed, no matter the issues. There's a disconnect of the social contract between the governed and the governors. When I say governors, not state governors, those generally governing society at the helms of affairs of things. There's a disconnect. When somebody is meant to be a representative, he's not there to represent anyone. He's only there for his own pocket. That's why the chasms in society keep widening. People keep getting poorer and people keep getting frustrated and not knowing what to do. So some of the things we can do is get involved in the political process. You can't say, oh, it doesn't concern me, or politicians are bad, or politics is bad. It's bad because good people stay away. Part of what I mentioned at the beginning is your natural default. Why your creator praised you is to enjoin good and forbid evil. So if there's evil in politics, you have to dominate it with good. That is your divine duty. Even if you can't be at the forefront of politics,
support those who will stick their necks out and keep moaning and complaining and saying, oh, this, that. No, you get involved with the process at any level you want, be it local, state, or federal. By the time you gather like minds, you'll have started a movement. And with numbers, things are actually possible. Yes, I know based on the political structures, there's more of selection than election, but that's because they haven't seen any force to challenge that. The political elites just think, oh, it's election time. We'll throw a few nairas their way and they're sorted. I remember a representative telling someone I know that, oh, I know how to sort myself out when election comes. I'll just buy kegs for making ablution for my constituency. And I'm like, what? He doesn't even go to his constituency until it's election time. I'm glad the previous speaker mentioned the Kilishi point, because I was going to. The Raw Materials Research and Development Council existed and could count as an achievement is the optimization of Kilishi production in 2020. That's a joke. That is madness. People are flying to the moon right now. We are talking about optimization of Kilishi production. I can't even fathom that right now. You know, that's the kind of culture we're in. That's what we've been reduced to. A laughing stock internationally. A country blessed with so much resources being wasted, being shared by a clique. It's the same clique. It's the same clique that has been in charge, that are still in charge. And that needs to change. That needs to be challenged. All of you may not be aware because you've all been distracted. Marginal fields are going to be allocated again. You may not know, it's the first bid in 18 years. My industry is, where I work is close, my industry I work is close to the sector, so I'm aware. So they're going to share your assets, again, the assets that belong to you and I, to the populace, among a clique. But they'll tell you, oh, this is it's a process, you know, we'll make revenues from it, blah, blah, blah. But are still getting impoverished while the national assets are still shared. At times when some of these political gladiators are confronting each other publicly, it's good to just watch. I advise people don't take sides because some of those in charge are fighting for their pockets. They don't care about the populace. They don't care about the development of the nation. All they care about is some of those private assets. So I think we need to really reflect. June 12th, I've been celebrating it for years, just like many of the Western states in Nigeria. Writing articles, though I said the last one I'll write was last year. Pondering, what did all those people die for? Did they die in vain? What have we achieved since then? How has it improved the situation of the average man? Since 99, we made billionaires. A typical example, National Assembly. Billions wasted. Billions that could be channeled to the development of infrastructure. For example, the healthcare budget is 46 billion for the whole country. The education budget is 48 billion for the whole country. Now, a handful of legislators, just over 400, have a budget of 125 billion. Even if you add 46 billion of healthcare and 48 billion of education, you get 94 billion. It's not even up to the budget of the National Assembly. So those are the issues. So when people speak of restructuring, I wonder how that is going to be done civilly via the National Assembly, for example, because they'll be not having none of it. Break up their party. So why would they support a cause that's going to affect the money they make? We should really ponder about that. As for me personally, to develop and accelerate economic growth, I'll support microcosmic developments across regions and for socioeconomic restructuring, not just socio-political. Some as they are not economical and should not exist. But I don't mind partnerships with other states. Whatever you have, be innovative, try, partnerships. There should be healthy competition among the states. Whatever you have, develop, it will be to the ultimate benefit of the masses. But what we have are governors detached from reality in their political cocoon that don't care about development. First priority is to settle the debts from political campaign funds before the election. Next is to settle themselves and family. So those who they're meant to represent are not even in the top 10 of their priorities. So how can there be any development at federal, state, or local level? Importantly, I am concerned for the future generation because they seem to be lost. They have the wrong role models. They have the wrong mentality. They have the wrong orientation. They look up to criminals. I think it was Jerry Rollins that said we are in love with our oppressors. And John F. Kennedy said, the future promise of any nation can be directly measured by the present prospects of its youth. What are our youth doing? Who are they following? Singing silly songs that glorify corruption, glorify vice. We have a nation of potential looters waiting for the opportunity to loot, and we think things are going to change. Without the natural default of fighting evil, even amongst ourselves, nothing is going to happen. I'll round up with the words from the Quran, which says, God will never change the condition of a people until they change that which is within themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother Mashudu Olu, for that beautiful presentation. You raise issues, very serious issues about strong institutions, and you have said that in the most, very correct manner. Without strong institutions, Nigeria can never ever get it right. I'm excited about your formula, which the acronym is AJE. Very, very excited about that. And for me, if the punishment for corruption is not that strong, we are just joking in this country. Politics is bad, you said, but it's bad because good people are keeping away, they are staying away. But I'm still going to ask you a question about that. You talked about getting involved, gather like minds, and start a movement. But my question in that regard, let me reserve it for now. Then quickly, you also talked about, you expressed concern about the young people. Everybody's concerned about that. Every right-thinking person should be concerned about the orientation of our young people. They glorify corruption, like you said. They pick their mentors among the looters and all of that. Now, I'm going to take the lead in asking questions, and I'll be expecting all participants to begin to put their questions together. I can't see much of that on the Zoom group chat yet. I'm hoping that people will send in their question. Talking about getting like minds and starting a movement, getting involved. We all know, that this is the way to go. But the question is how? How do we do this? Because every day you wake up to the Nigerian reality, the solution you thought of yesterday will no longer work the next day because you now begin to see something different. You begin to even question the solutions, the formula you have put together the day before. So we keep getting deeper and deeper into the problem. So my question is, how do we get involved and get involved meaningfully? That's my question.
Okay.
Is it by joining political parties, all of whom are just a bunch of, the same thing? You go here, you go there, you meet the same kind of characters. Their followers, because I'm aware of what happens in Alimosho. I live in Alimosho, Lagos. The people just go there to share the derica of rice, to share, things that will make you even want to cry. People attach so much importance to sharing even, 2 pieces of Indomie. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So how do we get involved and get involved meaningfully such that at the end of the day, we begin to see good results? That's my question.
Okay. I have a theory. Some people don't like it, but it's the reality. A particular class of people must die before we progress. If that class doesn't die, we may be going around in circles. I don't need to mention names. All of you know who I'm talking about. The class I'm talking about, I mentioned that class earlier. And I said, President Buhari may help us retire a particular class and kick them out of our political affairs. But whilst we are waiting for that, there can be a lot of sensitization amongst ourselves. Tell ourselves some hard truths about not getting involved. The implications of not getting involved. Mobilization via the grassroots. 2 options. Gather yourselves, form groups. You can keep that group whereby you have certain objectives. So if you're approached by a particular political party, you give them your terms and conditions to join, or some of your members join. Or you can just find a political party to invade in numbers. Politics is all about numbers. Once there are majority of you at the local level, at the decision making at the local level, those are the states will take notice. Before you know it, you guys are at the state level. If you can do that via the 36 states of the federation, before you know it, you're at the federal level. You just need to find like minds. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. That's why you have to purify your intention. Why are you doing this? Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it to steal? Are you doing it because you're struggling against evil? That is your natural default setting from your creator. So let's not get it twisted. Why we are doing things we are doing or getting involved. So those are my suggestions. Sensitization, grassroots mobilization, invade a political party or start one of your own, and make sure you all have the right orientation. Because I've seen people who change after they get into power. So there has to be checks and balances for that. You have to know that this candidate is one of us. He represents our struggle, understands our plight, and is going to fight our cause. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think I love that response. Sensitization, grassroots mobilization, and thirdly, you join and dominate, or you start your own political party. That's a very good one. My brother Idris Yusuf has a question, but he's driving. Can he speak? Yes, you can speak. Let me see. Okay. I'm trying to bring you on so that I can speak. Now, yes, you can speak now.
Okay, thank you so much. I really want to appreciate our first Shakira and product Oasis. Really appreciate the good question. Now, something caught my attention when the speaker is actually saying there, don't mind about how best that how
You're
best.
not audible enough. Can you
Okay,
pull over? Hello?
okay, I
Hello?
will do that.
Please pull over so that
that.
the noise will be reduced.
Okay. So, is it better now?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, I'm asking that having signed the two speaker, I'm saying that I like the opinion of the first the speaker about how best can we participate. Coincidentally, I also just like question now looking at what happened in the US currently now, and George Floyd and how the whole youth are responding. I want to ask the second speaker that don't you think that our problem, even if this generation of political class happen to die either by happenstance or by an act of nature or by whatever means, I'm even saying that the youth that we have now have been devoid, have been denied something more fundamental. So I'm thinking that education seems to be our focus. We've been educated in such a way that we don't even know how to ask for our rights. But each and every one of us as youth in this country are just like George Floyd. We have all George Floyd in this country. And we can't breathe. And we can't even say we can't breathe. So I'm of the opinion that perhaps this political class they are building dynasty, they've considered a nuisance, they're actually a minus in our history, fine and okay. But I think that the whole youth themselves, the education that this political class has given the youth, they've bastardized us. So I want to ask the second speaker, will you think that if we get it right with education, an education that teaches you that you need to know how to speak up and ask for what exactly is your right, an education that makes you be bold enough to challenge the status quo, that you need to rewrite the history of your nation, will you think that that would be a better means than any of these other solutions? I have a simple example. When I was serving, I called a number of colleagues that if you have this like over a decade and a half ago, if you happen to be in political power, will you stop the looting? Honestly, everybody in my platoon, I was the platoon leader then, they said no, we will not start revamping Nigeria when it's my turn. I will also loot again. Because everybody has been looting. Now it's my turn. You now want me to what? To revamp Nigeria. These are youths that are thinking under the sun or in this NYC anthem. So we are all touched on. We've all been victimized. And we are just waiting to really take our turn of looting, even if all this political class dies. So will you think education will be a very good leeway, a kind of a silver bullet that can click a reset button in this country?
Okay. The question, I think I got some of the questions, although it wasn't so clear. But I think the last bit was if education can be used to solve this issue of
Yes.
youth and the future.
Yeah.
You see, the looters. I have one of my backgrounds, academic backgrounds, is in psychology and sociology. I understand how the human mind works. Without any deterrence, people will not change. That's human nature. If you know you can get away with a crime, a lot of people will commit that crime. I didn't just come up with those recommendations of EJE overnight. It took decades of understanding how individual mind works and how the society works. Under Jonathan, we witnessed the epitome of how not to run a country. Corruption, ridiculous corruption, which we don't even need to go into the details of, because Jonathan's generation learned from a previous generation about corruption and looting. So their goal was to improve upon what the previous generation had done, that we will loot better than you. Now we have a generation that is aspiring, unfortunately, to do that. Why? Because there are no strong institutions. That's why I spoke about strong institutions are key to egalitarianism. No deterrence. EFCC, judiciary, ICPC, how many years have rolled? People don't want to die. If you still want to live long enough to spend that loot, Abacha is a typical example. It's still the gift that keeps on giving, even in debt. We're still perpetrating the funds he looted. It's even a joke that Abacha's loot recovery is a source of revenue for Nigeria. So without deterrence, consequences, implications, jail term, execution, exile, the youth will aspire to be looters as well, because they've seen those before them loot and succeed. But if they saw one or two people die live on TV, public, like the execution of Anini when we were younger for armed robbery, people will have a rethink that, wait a minute, I don't want to die. I don't want to end up that way. Maybe there's dignity in labor after all. You stop celebrating corrupt people, stop glorifying corruption, stop worshiping politicians. If a politician brings 2,000 naira to you, you throw it back at his face. That this is not going to change my life. This is just a temporary solution for a permanent problem. So people have to see those deterrents in place, those structures, solid, strong institutions, solid structures that things have changed. And there are implications for doing, for being corrupt. Then possibly, maybe the orientation will change. Without that, it will be difficult. I must confess, it will be a challenge, because I've seen the culture. I've seen what's going on with the youth now, and it's scary that if these ones take over tomorrow, God help us.
Okay, thank you very much for that brilliant response. I'm still expecting that participants will want to ask one or two questions. Perhaps some may also want to do voice, want to ask their question without typing. They want to, if you're interested in asking a question, we can unmute you so that you can be able to ask your questions. So I'm waiting for responses from participants to please quickly ask one or two questions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, I want to build on the question asked by, I think, TJ. I didn't get it properly, but I think it was TJ. The last question. I want to believe that the answer from the lecturer to me is it does not actually solve, or I want to say maybe I feel not satisfied. My question is, okay, if we do not have all these solutions, I mean, there are no institutions to implement the policies that have been written. There are no institutions to implement punishment and to serve as deterrent for all these bad issues we are mentioning. Now, how do we now form an alliance? How do we now build a new system when we know that the people that are running the current system, they are not ready to go? And if they don't go, just like you said, we are still just going to be, running the same rat race. So how do we really establish something that will work for us? I want the lecturer to really, deal with the question. To come up with some solutions, not only trying to establish institutions. How do we establish those institutions? For example, we want to make sure that politics is not how do you say it? We want to make sure that politics is not like a business. It's not lucrative. Yeah, that's the word. We want to see that politics is not lucrative. It has to come through policies. If there are no policies, if there are no laws, these things will not happen. Now, you want to, for example, reduce the salaries of the budget of the National Assembly, like he mentioned. How do we get this done? Since the only people that can do this thing are the same people that are in the Senate, the same people that are in the House of Representatives. So how do we really get it done? These same people are going to come back in 2023 for elections. They are going to bring huge money they have stolen to campaign to the people to get elected, and they will surely get elected. Now, we are youth. We don't have this kind of money, and we don't have the force to push it. So how do we really do this? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. The truth is, there's something I've noticed for decades now with the Nigerian ethos and our way of addressing things. When a country like America mentions its founding fathers, we have our own founding fathers too. But when America mentions it, they talk about the sacrifices a particular generation made. What I've noticed over the years is whatever, usually, I'm not saying that's applicable to everybody, usually we want quick fix solutions for problems that have taken decades to be institutionalized. Institutionalized problems. Systemic problems require systemic solutions, and that takes time. I don't mind putting in the work now, the sacrifice now. So maybe even if not my son's generation, my grandson's generation reap the benefits. That is a key problem because people want now. I want to reap the benefit now. I've suffered enough in this country, Nigeria. I want to enjoy. No, do it for God. Do it for your creator. Put things in place so the future generations can enjoy. That's how nations were built. Their forefathers made sacrifices for the future generations. We may not even see all these things we are saying, we may not see it materialize in our lifetimes, but we start the process. There's nothing stopping people in a council or local government gathering each other, take over that council and do better for your community. Replicate that across. Before you know it, you're controlling a local government. Before you know it, with the same template, you've brought improvement and betterment of lives to those in a local government. Replicate that across local governments. This may take years or decades. Before you know it, you have a state you can point to that is viable, doing really well, which other states might want to emulate. Replicate that across states. Before you know it, you produce a president that will be genuinely for the people, that rose from the ranks, from the depths, from that structure to represent the people. That is the realistic option. The optimistic option is Buhari. Go and beg him. We should all beg him that, sir, you've been fortunate enough to rule thrice. At your age, I don't even know if I'm going to live that long, but if I'm fortunate enough to live that long, I'm going to go all out and leave a legacy. Lee Kuan Yew did it in Singapore. Look at where Singapore is today. Mahathir Mohamad did it in Malaysia. Look at where Malaysia is today. These are people that came to take our palm kernel because they were not blessed with it, took it back to Malaysia, and they became the largest exporter of palm oil in the world. So those are the options. Realist, this takes time. I'm a realist. It takes time. We'll start from the grassroots. We may not see it materialize, but start a process. Lay the foundations for the future generations. I wrote an article some years ago called Arise, O Selfless Generation. You have to be selfless, not selfish. You can't think about ourselves. Yes, we may not see the land of milk and honey till we die, but that should not be the case for our future generations. So just start something, even if you don't see it materialize. You'll be rewarded for your intention by your creator. Any other questions?
Yeah, I can see some questions on the chat, on the group chat. Someone is asking that can a private person take up arms against corrupt politicians? Oh, that's a serious one. That would be taking laws into your hands.
You want to get us arrested?
Yes, so that would be, illegal insurrection.
No, but you can push for independent candidacy. It's one of the reasons why they haven't allowed it, because it's a non-violent revolution. If independent candidacy is allowed, for example. I know from my experience, if I was an independent candidate, I wouldn't have to go through certain political structures, wasting my time with that. I just go directly to the people. People, you understand their problems, their plight, can resonate with their issues. They will follow you. So maybe if we can push for independent candidacy as well, maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to take on the established political parties. Yes, you need a lot of grassroots reports. Funds will come. Don't worry about that. If independent candidacy is allowed, support will come from where you least expect it. But that's one of the reasons why they don't allow it. So we can't take up arms against the state.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay.
Now somebody is asking a gender-related question here. She says, what advice do you have for sisters that are interested in politics? That is, women interested in politics, considering several challenges attached to politicking in Nigeria.
Wow, that is a good question. The truth is, women there has been a lot of underrepresentation of women over the years. And there needs to be more. For women interested, the truth is you have to get the buy-in, as based on how society is structured. You have to get the buy-in of, if you're married, obviously your husband, your family, your kids, and make sure your partner, your husband, is on the same political level as you, understands why you're doing it, so he can support. There are women in politics all over the world, and they have supportive husbands. If your spouse or family are not supportive, that's your first challenge. Once they are supportive, you go all out, get involved without being harassed, molested physically. I don't need to go into details. I know what happens to some women who ventured into the uncharted terrains of politics. So the advice is, if you, I don't know if whoever is involved is married or not, but you get involved from your university. Even before that, I know a lot of sisters who are active when they were in uni. Some of them just abandoned it after they got married. So if you really have that zeal, you gather other like minds. You can even have a women's union whereby you make demands to political parties. You have a block. One of, may Allah bless our soul, Elijah Kudrat Abiola. One of the things he did for the June 12 struggle was campaign in the North. Not too many people know she speaks fluent Hausa. She actually grew up in Kaduna, Zaria, and has, I think, some father side maybe, has some Fulani ancestry. So she went campaigning, the women's vote for the June 12 struggle, for them to vote for SDP, vote for MKO. So that's political activism right there. She was clear about what she was doing from the get-go. And when her husband was incarcerated, she didn't sit down. And this mandate was mandate given by millions of people and must be actualized. She could have just sat down and enjoyed her life. But she invested money, assets, liquidated assets to fund the struggle, especially the Nadeco struggle that led to the ouster of the military. So that's a woman model for you right there. You can get involved. You can get involved, and I encourage more women to get involved because you make up the numbers.
Interesting. That's a brilliant one. Then I have, because I think I still have about 3 minutes to take questions before we take the goodwill message from the chairman of one of the SDA in Lagos here, our brother. Now, someone is asking a question that has to do with people in diaspora. He says, history of contemporary changes show diaspora play key roles. What roles are Nigerians in diaspora playing in sensitizing the Nigerian political system?
Whoa, that's it's a multifaceted question with many challenging issues because there's no unified diaspora, to be honest. I remember um, under, what was it called? Jonathan, there was a diaspora group, especially in the UK here, but then they got hijacked and they became partisan. So it's sort of a lot of people didn't want to get involved with their agenda because they got bought off. And some of those who start these programs have their agenda is just to fleece money from the government. I remember somebody in the Nordic country, region contacting me to check the authenticity of a diaspora group there. And we found out they were just there. It was all about the money. What can we get from the government? It's not really about getting the diaspora mobilized or sensitized or galvanized to get involved. If you look at the history, groups like Action Group were conceptualized abroad before it was implemented locally. So the diaspora has a huge role to play if it can be coordinated, if you can find the right minds. They can fund a lot of things locally. You know, the amount, we've seen the statistics, I don't have it right now, I used to, of the amount of inflow of money from the diaspora to Nigeria is in the billions.
So that's power right there waiting to be utilized. I think if something genuine or solid is formed locally, the solid foundation, the diaspora can be mobilized to fund such courses because, for example, that's how the Jews were able to achieve some of what they were able to achieve with the diaspora. So the same model can be applied in Nigeria, and those in diaspora, I'm talking to you now, get involved. Don't say I've escaped from Nigeria, I don't care. You have to care. You have to, even if you're not sticking your neck out, you have to be associated with the cause. You have to know what's going on in your country, be up to date. If you are blessed, find the right people to back or sponsor individually or as a group. So yeah, the diaspora has a key role to play as well, but it must be with like minds, not those with dodgy agendas.
Okay, thank you very much. One last question here says that how do we resolve the issues of godfatherism in politics?
I saw that. I actually had a section in my initial draft to discuss godfatherism, but that'll have taken some time. It's a big issue. As a former aspirant, I know it's a real issue. It's, one of the stumbling blocks we are faced with. But how to resolve it, we have to maybe address it from the local, state, and federal levels. We can conveniently say Buhari went against the Godfather when he emerged after his fourth attempt. The old man in Ota, who thought he was the Godfather that has been ordained to Nigeria's president, was shamed and disgraced. Especially in the last election where he didn't back Buhari. But at the local levels, it comes down to funding. What makes a godfather? A godfather is someone with the funds and maybe political structure. This is maybe where the diaspora can be useful as well. If you want to take on a godfather and you have funding, it is possible. You can dismantle structures. It's very possible to dismantle structures at the local level, maybe council or local government. But on a state level, the problem is always with the governors. They just pick, they select, not elect. In some cases, local government administrators or what's it called, chairman. They just write a list and these are going to be the governors. It's going to be difficult without funds and structure. It can be achieved maybe on individual cases, maybe a group of like minds focus on a state, local government, council that we want to take on. To require funding and require a lot of mobilization. It is possible. That's why you have to make sure you're doing this for the right cause. You would, if you're not dedicated, you would fizzle out. I remember telling someone when I was contesting, after the rigors of the election, day and night, up and down, campaigning, I said I still felt the pain in my bones, my joints, my bones, weeks after. whereby a normal person would be like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? But if you know you're doing it for the right reasons, you wouldn't mind, you know you'll be rewarded. So you have to be sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Mobilize, galvanize, sensitize people around you. And even if you lose your life, you know where you're going straight to. Because it's taking on godfatherism at times. Apart from the monetary aspects, requires something more. Sean.
Thank you very much for that response. Now, we are going to be closing very soon, but before we close, I don't know if Barrister Adegoke is still with us. Is Kira still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Like I said, I'm going to give the two speakers 2 minutes to do a summary of their presentation. For the sake of those who probably joined a bit late or joined while you have said a lot of things, I'll give you two minutes to help us do a recap of the talking point, the major points that you have raised. So, Barrister Adegoke, please, you can hold the floor right now.
Right, thank you very much. The basic summary that June 12 is a watershed in the history of Nigeria. However, it doesn't just symbolize MKO Abiola as a person alone or the people that suffered for it. For the memories of these people to be fruitful, the governments at all levels need to do what the people desired by trooping out to vote on the 12th day of June 1993, when Nigerians forsook ethnic differences, pushed religious differences to the background, challenged all our disputations, and threw all this into the dustbin, and voted for unity and economic development. There are certain demands by Nigerians. We want better living standards. We want food on our table. We want economic prosperity. We want political situations where all could effectively present themselves and be allowed to participate in governance. We want good education for our children. We want political advancement and social economic progress that are the yearnings of Nigerians, upon which they voted on 12th day of June 1993, and for which many people died. Kudirat Abiola died because of this. Alfred Riwane was exterminated. And Shud Abiola himself was killed by the regime of evil that presided, as a result of the annulment of June 12. So these are the demands of Nigerians. And it's good that the government of Buhari has recognized June 12, which Nigeria has lived in denial of for many years. We thank him for that. But for the memories of these people not to be in vain, their struggles not to be in vain, we need to make lives better for Nigerians. That is why we actually fought. We did not just merely fight for a date. We didn't merely fight for a concept. We fought for economic transformation, political progress, social advancement for ourselves, and a country that we can actually call our home. These are the demands of Nigerians, and that is what June 12 should actually symbolize. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To the second speaker.
Yeah, essentially, the struggle continues. We can't relent. The hardest part of it, I think, has been achieved. The military handed over the reins of power to civilians, even though with a military constitution. But to ensure that those who fought, struggled, died, did not die in vain. The struggle continues. It's up to us to now challenge the clique that has been in power since 1999. When I say clique, I don't mean political party affiliations. The elite, we call them Ajib, any government in power. That's the
class the people must eventually struggle against until the principles of egalitarianism are attained via all levels of government. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I told that the chairman of Ijeda SCDA will be giving the goodwill message. If Alaji is online, he can please hold the floor. I'm trying to identify him here. Hello. Mr. Abdikabir, are you there?
Editor, inshallah,
Yeah.
Alhaji Fatu is supposed to do the
goodwill message.
Yes, the goodwill message. I think he's having some technical. He should be on in some few minutes. So if we have one or two other questions, we can take it, or comments while we await him joining us, inshallah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm not sure we have any more questions. There are no questions dropping here.
Comments. The comments or something, just to hold on.
If anybody is interested in making comments.
Malam Abdul Kabir is raising up his hand. I think he should be on. Please allow him to speak.
Okay. Okay. I think he needs to unmute himself. Okay. Okay. You're welcome. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How is everything?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. You're welcome.
Just to say hello and at the same time to appreciate each and every one of us, and at the same time to encourage those of us that have interest in politics, and at the same time to let us be aware that that arena is not all that easy the way we think about it. So to the politicians among us, Almighty Allah will protect us and guide us against any evil plots of Shaitan and his servants. So that is just my message. So may Allah be with us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for the very short message. After this, I think we'll be closing. And before we close, I've been told that we'll be having the recitation of the national anthem. I don't know if this is still the order. And then a very short prayer. Is Mr. Idris Yusuf still with us?
He's on the drive as we speak. He's in motion. I don't think he.
Okay. So I was going to invite him to quickly do us a vote of thanks. But while he's driving, can we have someone else do that for us? It's Malam Olofi. Is it connected?
Let's allow Honorable Bora to do the remark, please.
Okay.
I think
Honorable Bora.
Yes.
Honorable Dawood, are you there? Is he online?
Hello? Hello,
Yeah.
yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Please kindly do us vote of thanks. And
Okay.
then a short prayer and probably lead us in the anthem.
Okay. Alhamdulillah, I want to thank Allah for giving us the opportunity to host this program. Of course, we started the planning very late. We also reached out to our speakers very late, and amidst their very busy schedules, they were able to find time to fix this in for us. And I must say that the delivery were so perfect and on point, and we've got so much lessons and things to really take home from this speech. And interestingly, one of the lessons that one of the speakers dropped on our lap is the fact that going by the grassroots way, we should not be expecting results, say next year, next election, but we need to consolidate continuously the grassroots effort that will eventually lead to the change that we are yearning for. I also want to thank all the participants because also the invitation went out very, very late. However, the most important thing that we need to leave with is the message, which is a takeaway, and we will continuously open up the platform for us to continuously engage with participants. This is supposed to be a program of the Muslim Vanguard, which is meant to reach out to the entire public without restriction of any religious affiliation. However, we cannot take away the coloration of the organizers or in terms of their beliefs. So we will call for a closing prayer, which I think will be the curtain for this program until we're able to organize another one by reaching out to the entire public. So please recite Surah Al-Fatiha along with us.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب
عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Now, thank you very, very much. On that note, we are drawing the curtains on today's program. But like I said in one of my chats in the group, this conversation must continue, not just on the Zoom platform. We need to continue this conversation physically, so that we don't experience any form of interregnum anymore. The more we go to sleep, the more we lose the bearing of what we need to do. So we need to keep on thinking, keep on engaging, so that in the short distance future we can achieve the aspirations of late Chivenko Abiola for Nigeria. That is very, very important. Of course, no one can deny the fact that June 12 is actually the true democracy day for Nigeria. I thank you very much for your time, for listening, for asking questions, and for all the contributions. Thank you for the participation. On that note, again, we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.